Okay, the time is 5 o'clock, so we're going to go ahead and get started for this workshop. So we appreciate everyone that is here this evening. So this is the discussion regarding animal control contract. So I don't know, Raylyn, if you want to kick it off, or if you want to turn it over to whoever it is.
So there has been a request by West Valley Animal Humane Society to have an increase in the fiscal 2026 budget of a significant proportion. And so before that is approved within the budget, their request does need to come before you because it is something that would impact quite a few departments within the general fund. So I'll turn it over to Tyler.
Very good. So if you could just kind of give us your name and address, and then time is yours.
Awesome. Yes, my name's Tyler Byers. I'm here on behalf of West Valley Humane Society. I'm the current board treasurer. Our shelter's here in Caldwell, 5801 West Gray Lane. Just a little introduction to how I became involved with West Valley. Came in last year during budgeting meetings with Canyon County. And things were a little bit more hectic last year than hopefully they are this year for you folks. But stepped in, the shelter was going through some severe financial difficulties, including some massive cash burn. They'd lost about $600,000 in a couple months span. So really for the better part of the last year, the West Valley Humane Society and the board have spent a lot of time and effort trying to really understand and put together usable financials and usable information so that we can make a intelligent and well thought out request from our municipal partners. So we've gone through, we filed 2023 990s, we completed our 2024 990s on time. We went through and hired a third-party accounting firm to get 2023 and 2024 books cleaned up and organized, and then we paid for a audit or a review on our financial statements for 2024. So we're very excited to be able to present you with reviewed financial statements and actual tax returns for our 2024. We feel like that really helps kind of explain where we're at in terms of funding. So one of the things that wanted to point out, West Valley Humane Society remains the second largest animal shelter here in the state of Idaho, behind only Idaho Humane Society. We have seen continued increases in the number of live animal intakes each and every year, with the exception of 2024. Because of those financial issues I mentioned, in 2024, we had to cut back to really just contract services with our municipal partners. We weren't able to take in all of the animals that we were taking in before. So we did see a slight dip in that, but throughout this entire time, our live outcome rate has continued to be at or above 90%, which is kind of the no-kill status, that 90% save rate. For our fiscal year 2026 budget request, we are requesting an increase in funding. I believe we're currently around $63,000. We are requesting to increase that to $540,000. We are not only asking Caldwell to bear an increase in funding, we are asking for increases in funding from all of our municipal partners, including the county and Nampa and Caldwell. In total, we're requesting municipal funding of about $1.5 million. Our budget for fiscal year 2026 is $2.4 million in total expenses. Just to cover salaries alone is $1.9 million. So we're not even asking to cover 100% of our funding. We're basically offering sheltering services to our municipal partners at about a 36% discount from what we could do it if they were up and running already. Again, our contract allocation, we do have $240,000 in operating funds from Canyon County. We are asking for $720,000 from the city of Nampa. We made that request, had a workshop with them last Thursday. We're asking for $540,000 from Caldwell. We do have a breakdown of that per capita cost, with Caldwell coming in on the higher end of that. We'll explain that here in just a second. In addition to the $240,000 that we're getting from Canyon County, they also provide the facility that we're in for $1 a year lease, plus $100,000 in maintenance funds. So even beyond the $240,000 that we're getting there, there's another $100,000 in in-kind donations, plus a $100,000 maintenance fund that we use to maintain their facility. So they are actually contributing even more than that $240,000. In looking at where we stand in funding compared to several other municipal shelters, we put together a little presentation here, or comparison. I really like Caldwell, or comparing Caldwell and Pocatello. Pocatello is a very similar sized city. They run and operate their own animal shelter, sheltering only. They're charging nearly $24 per capita to run that. They've got an annual budget of $1,375,000. You can see here, compared to other similar areas, what we've been collecting from both Nampa and Caldwell is significantly below what other folks are collecting from their taxpayers in order to support sheltering services. 72 cents and 99 cents per capita is just nowhere near what we're seeing for other municipalities. And even if with the increases, we still feel like that budget request compares favorably. One of the reasons why we're seeing that higher per capita cost for Caldwell, you'll notice on this slide that we break down intakes per jurisdiction. With Canyon County, the City of Caldwell, and City of Nampa. As of 2024, the City of Caldwell became our largest number of intakes at the shelter, and that's continued into 2025. You can see we're about 41% on average of our total intakes are coming from the City of Caldwell. Our current contracted services, licensing, stray intake and care, protective custody, quarantine, and then necropsy upon request. Our last update on this was last year, 2024. We do have a breakdown of what that contract covers, and a couple of items that should be included in that coverage but aren't, that you can take a look at. But really, WVHS is covering a large amount of the services that we are providing. We're not charging any of the cities, Nampa or Caldwell, for strays that are being brought in by citizens. That should be covered. Community CAP programming, that is, while it's an additional cost to provide, it actually does help save the city's money in decreasing the number of cats that we have coming into the shelter. We can do some preventative things to keep our costs down. Dog licensing is really not a great source of revenue. We do get refunds from our municipal partners, $10 being reimbursed to us. But as you can see in this slide here, we are seeing decreasing revenue from those kind of one-time licensing fees. Really the biggest challenge that we face as we're looking and running this shelter is staffing. We have a number of positions that remain unfilled. Last year, as part of our ongoing issues, we lost our executive director. We currently do not have funding or budget to hire an executive director, so we have a board of volunteers who are taking on all of the executive director roles. We don't have sufficient numbers of veterinary techs or vet coverage. In fact, one of the biggest challenges with our budget is our veterinarians are currently, or were being paid roughly $50 an hour, when the average wage for veterinary services is closer to $80 an hour. We've gotten those up to 60, but we really need to continue to get those wages increased. If we lose our veterinarians to other higher paying providers, we're now having to cover emergency vet services, which comes at a bill of $120 an hour. We are hoping to and looking to make sure that we're fully staffed for our animal care attendants, our clinic technicians, and again, management, still having a couple open positions. This is another look at kind of our budget by population. You can kind of see another breakdown there. This slide, I guess, really kind of gets down to the meat and potatoes of what happens if we don't see an increase in funding from our municipal partners. I think we're showing a cash burn rate here of about $57,000 per month. We were projecting to lose a total of $700,000 in fiscal year 25 based off of current funding. That's actually gotten just a little bit better as of the end of April. We partnered with Treasure Valley Subaru. They presented us a check of about $35,000 this last month. You know, kind of a one-time income. We're very, very grateful for our partnership with them and that kind donation that's actually made things a little bit better. However, we do have some other expenses that should get us back somewhere near that $57,000 cash burn. If we don't address that in a meaningful way, we're projecting around February of 2026. We would either have to close the shelter or come to you with a special funding request outside of normal budgeting season in order to make sure that we keep our doors open. You know, our current staffing and funding limitations restrict our ability to go out and fundraise and get a lot of these funds ourselves. We don't have, without an executive director, it becomes even more difficult to go out and build those relationships with community and really do all of the fundraising and donor outreach that we want to and need to be doing to keep this thing running. We are also increasing our funding portion of this. We've averaged around, you know, $300,000 in donations. I think we're between adoption income and donations, we're projecting about $950,000 in income that West Valley is going to kick in on top of what we're asking for to be funded from the cities. The other real challenge that we have on costs is our facility. Canyon County and the Treasure Valley in general continue to see rapid growth amongst their population. With more population means more pets. More population means more intakes. We've got a humane capacity in that shelter of somewhere around 80-ish animals, dogs. If we were to open all of the guillotines, the dividers in our kennels, currently we have 90 animals in the shelter, 90 dogs. I think we got up to 180 last year, so we had all of those guillotines down, dogs in the conference room, those types of things. So, you know, we will have some space constraints that we're going to have to think through and find a way to fund and get additional space. Future opportunities, one of the ways that we're hoping to address that space constraint, we've reached out, we're in discussions with PetSmart Charity. They have an everyday adoption center in Boise in their PetSmart there. There's an opportunity for us to use that space. Not something that would have any additional funding from our cities, but allow us, you know, some additional reach, some additional place to get animals out in front of people adopted and into loving homes, as well as lift some of that burden of space for our existing animals. You know, the proper funding is going to allow us again to get those staffing and wage issues sorted. We've also partnered with a company called Dubert Connect. It's essentially a third-party foster program. So rather than trying to set up fosters, they can connect us with a network of fosters, get animals into community member homes, which is a significant cost savings for the shelter. We have engaged a third-party firm to facilitate a strategic planning. You know, the board has been dedicated to transparency, trying to find solutions that work not just for the shelter, but for everybody involved, including our municipal partners. We want to partake in a strategic planning session and get a real thought-out plan on what this shelter will look like moving forward. We have been working to propose ordinance updates. One of the best ways or simplest ways that we can save money is by getting animals out of the shelter faster. When we came on board as a board, I believe our average length of stay was 32 days with an average cost of about $25 per animal per day. We've got that average length of stay down to, I believe, 10.2 days last I looked, so that we've saved some significant costs there. And you know, updates to some of these ordinances, things as simple as changing from 5 business days to 5 days, reduces our required length of stay by 2 days when we have animals coming in over the weekend, and represents significant cost savings for the shelter. Another thing that has come up that we've been mentioning in each of our budget meetings with Canyon County and Nampa, when I had an initial conversation with Ray Lynn, one of the things that they had mentioned was the potential for a joint contract with all of our municipal partners. We talk about transparency. Let's be transparent, get everybody on one contract. Idaho Humane Society in Ada County, they operate that way. They have a single contract. Provides a nice, good example of a single contract with everybody on board. That is something that the shelter's willing to consider if the other municipalities and Caldwell are willing to do so. One thing that we found very informative, very nice to see, part of our budgeting application for Canyon County, they asked for letters of support. So we put up a link on our social media asking for citizens of Canyon County to write in letters of support to see what kind of support the public has for West Valley Humane Society and animal sheltering services. Within the first 24 hours, I believe we received over 190 letters. We believe we reached 960 to 2,400 residents. We had a response rate of somewhere between 7.9 to 19.8%, which is a very, very significant number of responses. The kind of standard excellent is 5 to 10%, and we far outpaced that. So this is something that the citizens want. This is something that there is passion for in this community. And something that we want to ensure that we can make available to the citizens. Our largest barriers to progress, again, sustained animal welfare in Canyon County depends on adequate funding from all municipal partners. That is our single greatest challenge. We've actively engaged with everyone on our current and future funding needs. This is a conversation we've had with all of our partners, not just Caldwell. We have submitted that Canyon County budget request for $340,000. As I mentioned, we met with Nampa's City Council on Thursday, May 15th, requesting that $720,000. Another thing that we've attempted to do is we've created non-voting positions on our board of directors. For each of our municipal partners. Canyon County has provided somebody. He's on our board, attends all of our board meetings. We have not gotten any response from Nampa or Caldwell in regards to filling those positions. We would like to extend formally again that invitation. We would love to have somebody representing the city of Caldwell sit in on our board meetings, be part of those conversations. Again, we believe that transparency is the only way to move forward. That is what I wanted to make sure that I got across to you folks. I can do my best to answer any questions you might have for me.
Very good. I have a feeling there might be a few, and I'm sure Rayleen's available as well. Councillor Stoddart?
Mr. Mayor, thank you. Do we charge other cities, Parma, Greenleaf, Star, Melba? Do we charge other cities for this service?
We currently do not have any contracted services with any of the other smaller cities in Canyon County. We did have a per animal contract with the city of Marsing. They decided not to renew that. I believe on their tax notices, they sent out a notice to all their citizens that they're no longer providing costs to provide sheltering service, and we have let those residents know that we won't take any stray animals in from those jurisdictions.
So I guess the question for the lawyer is this something that's directed by law that the county has to do, an essential services they have to provide, or not?
Mayor Wagner, Councilman Stoddart, you said the county, did you mean the city when you asked the
No,
question?
county.
I believe the county and the city both have an obligation under statute to take care of stray animals.
So is that a statute someplace?
There's a municipal statute. It is, if you give me just a moment, I have it up here.
Is that directed by the state, or just, how's that, where's it come from?
Title 50, Chapter 319 is the animal at large statute for municipalities.
Okay,
That gives an obligation to the city to there's several different things that take place in that particular chapter, but there is an obligation to appoint keepers of and watching over for animals that are strays
Okay. I
and
guess-
sheltered. And then our city code has a complementary ordinance for that as well.
Okay, thank you. So if it's a law, why don't we go after the other cities too to partake in the expense?
We have had ongoing conversations with them. In fact, we have just had conversations with Middleton as well. They are choosing to provide their own solutions. The animal intakes from those communities, again, we're not taking any strays from any of those jurisdictions currently. We just don't have the space or the ability to cover those costs. But the number of intakes is significantly less, and they've decided to find their own ways to deal with those animal sheltering issues.
So if Caldwell decide to do that, then what happens? You would probably close your doors or what?
If Caldwell decided to pursue their own animal sheltering, we would just terminate our contract and allow the city to take over those services. Again, I think the biggest thing to keep in mind with that is we are providing a significantly discounted service to the city of Caldwell. I think it's in the city of Caldwell's best interest to continue to work with West Valley. Meridian, they contract with Idaho Humane Society, and they recently went through an exercise saying, well, what if we just took it over ourselves? I believe they're being charged somewhere north of $700,000 by Idaho Humane Society. So they did a study to determine the actual costs of operation. Their first year startup, including having to build a shelter, was well over $18 million. Their 30-year operating costs were north of $127 million versus anticipated funding to IHS of about $55 million over 30 years for IHS to provide it. So they're a pretty nice local source of somebody who just went through that exact thought process. And they've got that information available if you wanted to take a look at that.
Yeah, okay, but the point I'm trying to make is if this is a countywide law, then the other cities ought to participate in this tax also, because it shouldn't be just 2 or 3 cities participating. If it's a countywide requisite that all cities participate, and they shouldn't be allowed to say, have a vote, do we want it or don't we want it? I mean, if it's a countywide service and it's demanded by law, they should be participating too, I guess is my point. Okay? The other thing I didn't quite understand, your fundraiser. You say you don't have an executive director. A lot of organizations don't have executive directors, and they still go out there and fundraise. Why can't the commissioners do that? Is that against the law?
No, and we have continued to fundraise. As I mentioned, we recently partnered with Treasure Valley Subaru and raised $35,000. We're committing to raising and collecting donations of, I believe our budget's set at $400,000 is our goal for that, plus all of the income that we would receive from regular sheltering services. So we are continuing to do that. It is a full-time job fundraising for nonprofits, and everybody on the board does have outside employment. So we're not able to contribute as much time as what we would with an executive director, but we are committed to taking on our portion of this cost and raising those funds.
I would think with the demand that they have, that would probably be a priority for the commissioners themselves to organize some type of fundraiser besides the Subaru, but other things, and they could, I'm sure there's people in these other organizations that probably give their time free to them as far as how do you organize something like that. It just seems like they're putting a burden on the other cities, but yet they're not willing to do too much. The commissioners I'm talking about relative to fundraising.
So I would challenge that what we are providing right now is 100% municipal services. We are not offering any additional services that are, in line with our mission. We're trying to help as many animals as we can, but we are only funding municipal contracted required services currently. So, we're asking to get city funding to cover 67% of the cost of those municipal required services. So we're still putting in, our fair share is I view it, offering a 30-some% discount on those municipal services. and hoping to, continue to build that out and get some of those other revenue-generating options put in place to help cover our portion of
Yeah,
those
like I
costs.
say, getting the money from the cities is the easy part. The hard part is fundraising. And I just, from what you've said so far, I don't think the commissioners are doing too much as far as making that kind of effort they need to fundraise for this service they're providing. That's my point. See where I'm coming from?
I understand, and again, I would just challenge, it's 100% municipal services, and we're providing over a third of the cost of those.
Yeah, I can guarantee you if Caldwell had something like this, this council would be looking at how can we correct it right away, and an effort would be made as far as a priority. It doesn't seem to me that the commissioners are making a priority other than how much money can we get from these other cities, and it's not shared by the whole county when it's an essential service that's, provided by the county and everybody should pay. So I'll stop there. Thank you.
Councilor Doty?
Thank you. Yeah, I agree with Councilor Stoddard on this. So I'd like more clarification from our city attorney of what exactly is required by law. Reading off a code and reading we're required to take care of stray animals, I'd like to know the exact requirements of what the city is required to do and what the county is required to do to make a decision of over a 500% increase that they're requesting. Also, you say these other cities don't pay, but you don't take their stray animals. I was a deputy sheriff at one time in my career. And are you recording the location to see if these cities aren't giving it to a county to turn in, or picking up in a location outside their city limits, or shooing the dog? And I'm not saying it's wrong to make the dog run in a direction into which it's outside the city limits, but I guess my point would be is that we need to make sure that if the code says that all cities are required to do this, then what are they doing with their dogs? And I'm not saying they're doing anything wrong. What I'm asking is, what are they doing then? And I would ask the mayor to look at alternative sources when the fee gets this high, is maybe contracting with someone else. I mean, if we have to drive to Boise for a few dollars in gas, it may be well worth that per day to go do that. But I think just to say we support this and we should do it without looking at all the alternative solutions within our town or our surrounding area would be irresponsible of us. And you mentioned the municipal required services, so this is why I'm asking the attorney is, you may be doing what's required in the contract, but we may be having you do things in the contract that are not required by Idaho code. And so that's what I'd like to see a breakdown of, is what exactly are we required to do, when are we required to do it? Clearly vicious dogs, if my memory serves me right, is in there somewhere. But if we're just picking up animals whenever we want to pick up animals and dropping them off, then maybe we should look at alternative sources for that. And I just want to be very clear, so when this goes on social media, I own 2 beautiful black labs myself, so I care for animals. I'm just also watching out for the taxpayer as well. Thank you.
Councilor Register?
I'm going to take this in the same direction, but a little bit different. Now, personally, I would take all the dogs if I could in my yard, but they won't let me do that. So, a couple of things. One thing I didn't hear you talk about was grants. Are there any grants for this to sustain this program at all, or?
The only
that not a
reason that
possibility?
the shelter exists today is because we received $467,000 in emergency grants last year from Best Friends Animal Society. There are additional grants that we can pursue, but typically not in that high of a level, and those would be, one-time issues to cover an ongoing funding shortfall.
Yeah, so I know sounds like you've done a really good job of trying to catch up on some of the prior mismanagement and making it work now, and this is what you're faced with, right? I think, and I don't want to speak for Councilor Stoddard, but I think what or maybe a little bit of what he was saying was the feeling of has everything been exhausted, right? Like, so as far as grants or the fundraising or whatever, and we've hit this wall, and now you're going to come to the cities, right? Like, so I guess that's kind of the question. And then also, going along with what Counselor Doty said, in my law enforcement experience, I know for a fact that it's really where the dog is or the animal is found, not necessarily where the animal came from or lived. And with that being said, with Nampa having a population of at least 35, 40,000 more people than we have, I'm trying to figure out how Caldwell has such a big bill.
So, yeah, I'll try and address all of those. I apologize. You know, I think in my research and my time on the board, again, a little over a year, relatively new to this, it's been a lot of learning, a lot of coming to the table. So West Valley Humane Society as an organization came into being in 2011, taking over sheltering operations from the county. In 2011, the county's budget to run that shelter was $1.2 million. We've been receiving $300 and some odd thousand from our 3 municipal partners for that since 2011. We haven't received contract increases to cover the increased cost of operating. We all know that, you know, costs of labor have increased dramatically in the last several years, and quite frankly, the organization never made appropriate budget request increases. This should have been being increased over the last 14 years. Unfortunately, I can't do anything about the past 14 years. I can only come to you now and say, hey, you guys have been receiving a highly, highly subsidized service for 14 years. We're asking you to pay it is a dramatic increase, and that's always a tough pill to swallow when you're asking for a multiple 100% increase. But it is in line with what other municipalities and other jurisdictions are paying for similar service. We don't feel like we're overcharging or asking the cities to cover an increased portion of that bill, or that we're, you know, completely abstaining from our responsibility as a nonprofit organization to provide some of that funding. You know, again, our total budgeted expenses for fiscal year 26 are $2.4 million. Our wages, just to get fully staffed, are $1,972,000. We're asking for city funding of $1.5 million. As I mentioned, you know, I think if the city were to try and do this on their own, significant startup costs and significant ongoing costs, with costs of labor being that number one cost, and all those benefits and salaries the city would have to pay to get this thing up and going.
I think I'm just trying to understand the cost better. So on one of the first slides you had on there that you had the total budget amount, and then you had Canyon County and Nampa at $960,000, and then Caldwell at $540,000. It was like the very first slide.
Yeah.
So I was trying to understand that better compared to the numbers that you gave during the slide. So if you could, is that?
So I like this. This is the slide you're referring to.
That's the one, yeah.
So this slide ties or rolls county and Nampa in together in one lump sum of $960. If we split it up here again, we're looking at $240,000 from Canyon County as their
Why is
proposed budget.
Canyon County paying so much less?
I think if you had a conversation with the
Nampa and
Canyon
Caldwell.
County commissioners, they would tell you that they're footing way too much of this bill. If you look at the the population of unincorporated Canyon County, that represents about 16%. The total operating budget that we're requesting from them is about 16%.
Right, but
top of-
if the smaller cities that they mentioned are not paying, that are part of the
Then we're
county.
not providing services. I
Well,
can't control
that-
if somebody's going to
I
lie where
understand
the
that,
animals are
but
coming
if
from.
if you're turning away animals from a city that's not paying, all they have to do is release their animal in Caldwell, and then it becomes Caldwell's problem. I'm not arguing that we should have a shelter. I don't think that the city can put together a shelter on their own. I think we need to find a way to work together. I want the animals to be taken care of. I think everybody up here probably does. We're just trying to figure out the money part of it, because it's a lot of money, right? So
Absolutely.
I guess the question is there another number that's going to help you, along with you guys looking for and utilizing grants, whatever fundraising opportunities that you might have, all of that kind of stuff. So I'm not against doing something, but I don't know that we can justify $500,000, especially when Nampa's not paying that much more and county's paying $300,000 less, right?
So,
So it's just coming up with the numbers, I think, and figuring that out.
and I think, you know, if Caldwell can't come up with the $540,000, we understand that is a decision that, you know, city council would have to make on whether or not they'd fund that. If we don't get to that $540,000, we are willing to walk away from our contracts and let you find another partner to provide those services. We are prepared to do that.
Okay, well, I guess that answers my question then. So there's not, it's not like there's a negotiation type thing where we can come up with some numbers and work together collaboratively with either the other cities or you in your program to where we can afford it. I mean, I don't know where we're going to come up with. What did we give you last year?
$63,000.
$63,000. I mean, I don't know where we're going to come up with an extra $490,000. Can we go into budgets and come up with $100,000 or two? I mean, maybe, right? But $500,000 is a lot of money to spring on us and then say, well, if you can't do it, we're walking away.
So we initially tried to start these conversations in November. We had an open house at the shelter. We presented those numbers at the shelter. We've taken, you know, even additional time since then, really trying to find that lowest common number that we can get to that makes this work for our current contract setup, and that number is $540,000. That was the bottom.
So have Nampa and Canyon County, have they committed to the increase?
They have not. We've had those meetings. Those are continuing, ongoing. You know, Nampa's facing the same thing that all city governments are with, you know, the various law changes that affect the amount of money that you guys can take in. We get it. It's a challenging time for municipal finance. I'm not trying to make light of what we're asking here. We truly understand what it is that we're asking. That's why we put in the last year's worth of work to really feel good and confident about the number that we're asking for, and realizing that may not work for the city, and we have to be ultimately, you know, the board of directors for West Valley Humane Society wants to help and save as many animals as we can. That's our mission. That's what we want to do. And if we have to end, you know, municipal contracts and shrink the size of the shelter to make sure that we're still helping some animals, then that's what we're going to do. We're on pace to lose almost $700,000 this year.
When are you looking for an answer from these different cities?
This is, you know, part of that ongoing budget request, so we're hoping to have this wrapped up in the next couple of months.
And then if Nampa or Canyon, or the county, I'm sorry, decide not to meet the number, are you pulling services from them as well?
If we are asking for a much smaller increase from Canyon County. It's a $40,000 increase in the operating budget, strictly because we don't get as many intakes from them. You know, we feel pretty confident that we will get that number. With Nampa, we have informed them as well. If we can't get to that $720,000, we are willing to walk away from that contract.
What is Nampa paying you now?
It's 84, somewhere in there.
They paid $84,000 and you're asking them for $720?
Correct.
Yeah, okay. Well, real quick, there's a couple ladies in the back that I watched over Christmas time on social media looking for volunteers for the shelter and taking care of the animals and going and feeding them. I just wanted to acknowledge them back there, Julie and Gina. Sue, I couldn't remember if you were there or not, but I remember they were all over social media looking for food and people to go in and feed the animals and all that kind of stuff. So thank you very much for doing that for us.
Councilor Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not really sure where to start because it almost seems like this workshop is irrelevant from what you just said a moment ago, where if we can't meet this threshold that you've laid out before us, there's no negotiation, it's your number or nothing. So you could have emailed us this presentation if this is all there is and you're gonna walk. So I'm a little disappointed that our questions might not even be relevant. And maybe you'll just have to walk. I don't know, because coming up with that much money in a fiscal year where we're struggling to budget to begin with, we'll have to make some hard decisions, like whether we want to support policing our community and fire in our community and those essential services, or whether we want to support taking care of this animal shelter. Let me get to some questions. This is frustrating to me. I don't know how you existed this long based on the numbers you're sharing with us. I know you said 400,000 grant last year. How did you exist the year before with these numbers?
That is a very good question. A lot of it has been one-time donations. We get the vast majority of their income in the past was community members passing away and making large bequests to the shelter. Last year, we showed a small profit last year. We were running on a skeleton crew. We weren't open to the public and providing a lot of those services that community members have been calling for and requesting that we provide. So we were closed to the public since 2020, I believe. And quite frankly, we didn't have, the staff. So we were much smaller, and they were doing an incredible job, to the board and the former director and Carly. They were doing a phenomenal and almost magical job of making things work for a teeny tiny amount of funds, and I quite frankly do not know how they were able to continue to operate. But it is my understanding, having not been here that long, that this isn't the first time that this shelter has gone through financial issues. They've had, struggles with funding and finances for multiple years, and one that, from everything I can see and tell from my limited experience, is due to a lack of funding.
My next question is important, because if an irresponsible pet owner suddenly decides he just doesn't want his pet anymore, and he relinquishes his pet to the shelter, what do you charge them?
That is, we don't, as far as I know, and I may not be the best, I'm not heavily involved in the operation, so I might not be the best to answer those questions, unfortunately, but.
Because I wish our analyst was here, because the numbers I'm getting from our police department is the police department is surrendering very few animals compared to the numbers that you're presenting that are being dropped off in the city of Caldwell. So that tells me that residents are bringing animals into your shelter. And I'm a dog lover. Let me tell you something. I would need a kennel license if my wife had as many dogs as she could have. We love dogs. And so I want our animals to be taken care of as well. But I can't afford this. I'm just telling you right now, there is no way on earth I can afford this. And so if there's nothing else to discuss, I don't really know that I have any more questions. I have more questions, but I don't think they matter, especially if you're not charging people that are just surrendering animals because they want to, and you want me to pay for it. I'm sorry, I'm not willing to do that.
Councilor Allgood, questions?
Yes, sir. I feel for you. This is a difficult discussion. This has, over the years, we've had discussions like this raising animal fees before. And times before, it was always a per animal charge. And Caldwell always sought to control their costs by reducing the number of animals that they brought to the shelter. More dog license enforcement, not picking up some strays, that kind of thing, to keep our costs down. It allowed us to, kind of feel like we had some control over it. Is that not an option this time?
There's a significant challenge to per animal contracts. That is something, as we were coming on board, we brought in Idaho Humane Society last year. They came out to the shelter as kind of the Treasure Valley's well-established, well-run shelter. We brought them in to kind of go over our operations, get our operations cleaned up, and really make sure that we were doing things appropriately at the shelter from an operations standpoint. Fortunately for me, that gave us access to Dr. Rosenthal and Leanne Gilberg out there, their CFO. I discussed with them a per animal contract and some of the pros and cons of that. Cities are always, wanting to say, let's go for a per animal contract. City of Nampa is saying, hey, there's portions of Caldwell that have a Nampa address, and we want to make sure that we charge those to Caldwell, so let's get on a per animal contract. Which then you're really basing your costs on the average animal. And I don't know how to calculate the cost of an average animal. If we take in an animal that's, been injured and we're having to provide vet services and then recovery, and that animal ends up being there for 30-some days, but we're only charging a flat rate per animal, then we're taking a loss on that animal and we have no control over it. So as we went through this budgeting process and I talked to Idaho Humane Society and looked at our numbers and looked at our costs, I wanted to get this down to a per capita cost, because I think that's something that's, a easier number to calculate. We can pull up population, we can look at that, and so we've really kind of gone and looked at this thing on a per capita basis as a frame of reference. As opposed to that per animal and trying to figure out what an average animal is, because it's really an impossible math problem.
And just one last question. Would you remind me, I think you talked about it, but I don't remember, the difference per capita in Nampa is at 0.72 cents, we're at 0.99 cents. What the difference is there, why that reflects differently?
So the challenge that we have is coming up with a split on this budgeting request that's, I'm hesitant to use the word fair because I don't think most things in life are fair, but I'll use the word equitable. We wanted to make sure we had an equitable split in this. As I said, our Caldwell is our largest source of animals coming into the shelter, whether that be strays or animal control. They're the largest. So, and with a smaller population base, there wasn't as much of a divisor to split that up amongst. But we base that roughly off of our animal intakes, at 36% of them coming, from Caldwell.
So you're saying, and this kind of just shocks me, considering the difference in population between Caldwell and Nampa, the city of Caldwell brings more dogs to the shelter than the city of Nampa?
We're having more animals come in that are either owner surrender, strays, animal control, that are coming from Caldwell than any other municipality that we currently contract with. Yes, sir.
All right, thank you, appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
So follow-up question real quick, and then we'll get to you, Councilor Denver, just going off of that. So the thing that I was curious is, so how do you, when somebody comes in, how do you know if it's Caldwell, Nampa? Do you just ask them? Do you look at their driver's license? Do you look it up? Because I know, like Caldwell, for example, the zip code 83607 is huge. So my parents, well, majority of my family live up by Middleton, but they're Caldwell zip code. So I guess I'm just curious is, do you look at driver's license, or how do you determine Caldwell, Nampa, unincorporated Cannon County?
Nancy, do you know? Nancy's also on the board.
Yeah.
She's got a lot more operational experience with than I do. If you don't mind,
Yeah,
Mr.
no
Mayor,
problem
I'd
at
love
all.
to have her answer
I'm
that.
sorry to jump in front of you, Councilor Denver. I just figured we'd run that.
So they will ask where they pick the dog up, and they will ask for ID. If it's city limits, then it would go towards that city. If it's in unincorporated areas, it would be part of Canyon County intakes.
Okay, perfect, excellent. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Councilor Denver.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. Mr. Byers,
Yes, sir.
first of all, my apologies. This is a classic example of killing the messenger. And I want to make sure that I note that you too are a volunteer. And if you take a look at the average amount of time people volunteer, about 2 hours a week is their max. So when you find more time, I would expect you to raise the $1.4 million you need to run this shelter. And I say that in jest because I want to make sure that you are given the credit that you are due for delivering a very, very tough message.
Thank you, sir.
Having said that, this is a difficult pill to swallow, to go from $68,000 a year to $500,000 a year. And I think there's a whole host of things that went awry over the years. 4 or 5 different directors, probably 30 or 40 different board members, a whole bunch of different things that just kind of led to this point where you're at today. So my indictment is more of this systemic failure that we have, where we did not calculate from year to year what our increase should have been. And thanks to the shelter for giving us such a great deal for all those years. But I also, in this, am concerned that we have apathetic landlords that aren't keeping track of the number of dogs their tenants have. We have a whole host of varieties, including growth in Canyon County. But when I look at the numbers that the police department is dropping off, let's just say roughly 50 dogs, and you amortize that out based upon your census and your daily census, should put us around $50,000 or $60,000 if you did a per dog. So how many of the animals that are coming into the shelter are just, let's just say, irresponsible owner drop-off, I found a dog running in my street, versus how many our law enforcement are bringing in?
That is a great question.
And I know you've only been there for less than a year, so we expect you to have perfect answers.
Our board president is much more versed in this, and he would be able to spout those numbers off for you, right quick. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to be here with us today, and any number that I gave you would just be a guess, and I don't think that's fair to any of the council members. I don't know that number off the top of my head. I can get that information, and I can send it to you if you would find that helpful.
I think going forward, Mr. Mayor, there's a lot of questions that we need to have answered. I don't think anybody here is anti-animal and I think we want to be able to support the shelter. I want to tell you, I want to be able to support the shelter. But if there is no money to support the shelter, that's the situation that we're in. So that's all my comments.
Yeah. Councilor Register?
I agree, and I just wanted to be clear about a couple of things. Everything that I'm hearing feedback-wise, I think everybody wants to help. I just don't know if we can help at that level. So I think some of the frustration you're getting is when you said, well, if you can't do it, then we're walking away. Instead of, can we have a conversation about this, that goes outside of this meeting with finance and things like that, and looking at our budget and seeing if, where we can even land. And then the other thing I wanted to ask the mayor about, we have a grant writer, the city does, right? Mm-hmm. Could we offer to help look for some grants or do some grant writing for the shelter to see if they could get some relief that way as well, and maybe then decrease the amount that they need from the city? Or would that be something we could do?
Yeah, and I looked over to Raylene because the grant writer is in her department. I didn't want to say yes to put
Or
more work
is
on
that
her,
is
but
that
yes,
something,
so something that definitely
we could consider maybe working collaboratively, like where if the grant writer were to help find some grants or write the grants or whatever, that maybe that would help you offset some of the costs for the city of Caldwell, I guess is what I'm getting at, right? Because like I said, I think that if you came to us and said, hey, we need $200,000, it might have been a little bit of an easier, something easier to digest than, $500,000. So anyway, maybe those are conversations we can still have, because I think we all want to come to a solution. I think the only thing that I just want to also talk about, which we kind of everybody did, is that we don't really know where the dogs are coming from, or cats, or whoever. They're mobile, right? So if they're picked up in Caldwell, it doesn't mean they didn't come from the area of the county or Nampa or whatever. So it's hard to tell exactly where they're all coming from unless it's an owner surrender and you have some kind of proof. And I think that's where people were just getting at with that. So just to take that argument out of the equation altogether, like how do we come together and help where we can, offering services of a grant writer to help you, and then of course everybody else, unless we can't come to some resolution, and then we have to go with what Counselor Doty said and maybe contract with another county. So,
Councilor Stark, do you
Yeah,
have a
Mr.
follow-up?
Mayor, just one last thing. I just don't think that, again, and no reflection on you, because you're the messenger, we want to kill you, obviously. But I just don't think the commissioners have really thought this thing through. It kind of reminds me of I was on the Valley Rapid Transit Board for a year, and they came up with a substantial increase over last year to this year too. Our ridership really wasn't up that much, but, you know, they just said, here's what it is. If you don't agree with it, we're cutting your service. And on grants, I can't believe the county doesn't have a grant writer. I would think that would be a priority because, again, I'm on the Veterans Board, and we don't care if it's $1, $500, $1,000, or $500,000. I mean, we go after everything every year, and we spend a lot of time on it. And again, I just don't think commissioners are really thinking this thing through, and they're not doing their jobs. If you need that on me, that they don't do that.
I hear what you're saying, Councilmember. I'll just, for a little context, we have a 5-person board. I work a full-time job just like everybody else on our board. I'm putting 15 to 20 hours per week into trying to make sure that this place stays open. You know, we've been trying to engage in these conversations since November with the city of Caldwell. We knew that this was going to be a substantial request. It's a large number. Large numbers take time to be able to digest and you know, come to terms with, if that's even possible. We've been trying to engage with you folks since November. You know, I put in countless hours, you know, talked to multiple different organizations. I don't think it's going to be just quite as simple as we'll contract with somebody else. I don't think that there is another solution out there that's going to be as cost effective. I really don't. You know, I don't think that I've got another 20 or so hours a week to be sitting at home writing grants and trying to get that. You know, we want to grow this thing, make this thing sustainable. We want an executive director and folks in place so that we're fully staffed and we're not dealing with short staffing issues so that we can pursue all of these options. But there's only so much that a group of volunteer board members can do given time constraints with real life. And, you know, I apologize. It's not my intent to come in here and make this a, you know, this is it kind of presentation. I do want to impress upon the city council that we've thought through this. I've been through these numbers. I feel very confident in these numbers. You know, if there's another solution that we can come to, of course we want to be good partners for our cities, but I have to challenge the notion that there's some, you know, we're being too aggressive with our costs. I think these are real bottom line numbers. We've cut back as much as we can, and I truly believe that.
You've mentioned that you've been at this since last November, working or trying to get these numbers together, and who you've been negotiating with us in the last 6-7 months? Because this is the first that I've seen this.
So we've sent multiple requests and not received any response. I've met with Raylyn once. We had the animal control officers that came out to our shelter. We invited the city, including Mayor Wagner. I know you were out of town when we had that open house, so not trying to hold that against you, I promise. But you know, we invited people out to that open house. I know the police department were there. They were given an early look at our budget before we really had 2024 numbers refined and finalized. So we've perhaps not the most efficient communication, but we have been trying, and whether it's, you know, lost in translation or not, we just haven't gotten much of a response.
Yeah, and I don't think the grant writing should be left up to you. Again, I think that's the commissioner's responsibility, and they should have somebody hired just like the other municipalities do to take care of some of these things.
And Councilmember, you know, you keep mentioning the commissioners. I do want to really stress, and this is something that's come up multiple times in conversations with them. The county does not run the shelter. They provide us a building. Their only responsibility is to provide us a building. They donate our rent. We pay them $1 a month. They donate their labor costs for their maintenance department. They donate some costs for their IT department. So they are giving us substantial in-kind donations on top of that $240,000, plus a $100,000 maintenance fund to keep up on their building. They invested over $1 million in remodeling that shelter to decrease utility costs. We went from a soft top to a hard top, but as far as actual operations, the county does not have any operational responsibilities at the shelter. It is all our staff.
So were they aware of these numbers? I mean, the rising of the numbers that you expect from these cities, when were they aware of these numbers?
So a version of this was presented in November to everybody that was there, including the Canyon County Commissioners. And the budget ask has been part of all of our budgeting meetings that we've attended with each individual. We haven't, kept any of those numbers secret. They are posted at each one of these budget requests.
Didn't they have any questions relative to the enormous increases at all, or did they question it, or what was their?
The county has felt that they've covered an unfair share of the cost of operating the shelter over the last multiple years. They've pushed back on their portion of the funding as a smaller unincorporated area, and all of the in-kind expenses that they donate, they have been pushing to see a more even playing field from Nampa and Caldwell on those budgets.
Okay, I know we're getting to the time of the regular council meeting, but who actually, is it a private industry that operates this thing then? Is that what you're telling us, or?
We are a nonprofit or 501c3 organization.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Good.
I just have, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, this is why I think we need some more advice from our city attorney. So just because West Valley's running it, I think their code still requires the county to do it. I get they're giving them a building, but I think we need some more detailed information on what the code requires the county to absolutely do, whether you walk away completely and they have a building sitting there. I'd like to know what the code requires them to do, and also whether that code requires them to also accept our animals from within our cities or not, or they could say we're not accepting Caldwell animals. I'm not so sure they can do that. So there's just a lot of questions and scenarios. If someone brings in a dog that has a broken leg, I give it to my buddy, they take it in, it sounds like there's no fee charged, and then I go to pick up my animal from you now that you've repaired this nice broken leg on. Do you charge me to get that animal back, or you just keep it to infinity in the shelter if I can't afford to pay for that? And I don't expect you to ask that today, but if someone can just hand it to their friend to take their dog into the shelter and you don't charge anything for the dog to come in, and you provide all these services and pass those expenses on to city taxpayers to get this animal fixed, well, you're getting paid, so sure, I'm guessing you give the dog back, you don't just keep it in the shelter to the end of its life. So there's just so many things that I'd like to know is what is required, what are the services required by law to serve, and I can't quite honestly help it if the counties thinks they didn't get a good deal. If Idaho code says they have to provide a shelter, there's lots of times, lots of legislation is passed on cities and counties where there's no funding for it, and they tell us that you have to do it. So I'll leave it at that since we're at 6 o'clock. Thank you.
Yeah, you have it.
Very quickly, is this number that you gave Caldwell your rock bottom number?
I fully believe that to be, yes, ma'am.
Okay. And then I think the other thing too with what Councilor Doty said, that the question I have about the code is if these smaller cities don't want to chip in, can they do that? I guess that's not really a question for you, more for you. Can they just not pay and then everybody else absorb the cost? So, but I would really like to, if Raylan and the mayor are in agreement, I would really like you to reach out to them about maybe having some assistance with grants, even if not this year, next year, whatever, because I think that maybe that would help a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, further discussion and diving into it, because I looked up that code, and so it's the animals at large regulation. It basically just says cities have the authority to regulate. So it doesn't even say you have to. It just says have the authority to regulate. So that's something that we can get into further and try to get some of what does the code require and things of that nature. So lots of questions still to be answered. So it sounds like we might have you or somebody back again in the future, but we'll try to get some of these answers. And again, I want to just reiterate, thank you so much. We realize you are a volunteer on what you're doing, so to come here and present, it takes a lot. So we really, really appreciate you coming and doing that and trying to figure out some of these questions. So thank you so much for your time and for your dedication on that. So it speaks volumes to you and who you are. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your time.
Okay, very good. So that ends our workshop at this time. And so we're going to take a short recess, and we'll be back in about 5 to 10 minutes to begin our council meeting. Apologize, we will be beginning a little late this evening.